Welcome to Mac Stories Unwind, the show that's all about the picks. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Federico, we have to hit the ground running today because we are starting a very important series, and this may be the ultimate most important of all the episodes, only because I think you and I listen to more music than we do just about any other media. So, we're going to do our best of music for 2022. What we think are the best albums and other songs and things from the past year. And before we get to the picks, and we each have quite a few, so we're going to kind of move fast, I want to ask you a little bit about your process in coming up with what are your number one albums and songs this year.
Yes, I have a setup for this, and I'm sure this will surprise you. Of course I do. But yes, this is actually something that I set up last year, and then I just needed to update for 2022 by changing the year from 2021 to 2022, and that was it. I'm using Marvis Pro, of course, and I have a custom section called Albums of 2022. Again, last year it was called Albums of 2021. This section displays the albums, just the albums that I've listened to the most in any given year, sorted by listening time. So at the very top, there's the album I listened to the most, followed by, in listening time order, so consumption time, basically, from top to bottom. And this is a custom section. I can give you actually the filters that I've used. So you can sort by time spent listening, which is a built-in filter in Marvis Pro, in descending order, so from bigger to smaller. And the rules for these are, in library is true. And usually, if I'm really liking an album, I always add it to my library from Apple Music. Year is 2022, of course. Is completed album true, right? You want to make sure that you have a complete album in your library. And the final trick to avoid having like singles and EPs and that kind of stuff was items count is greater than 3. And usually an album has more than 3 songs,
Right.
But I didn't want any singles I guess it's also rare to have a 3-song EP, but still, I wanted to make sure that singles would not be included in this smart collection.
Because you're a singles hater.
I don't hate singles. But I guess really like the star of the show is the albums that we're choosing.
It really is, yes.
And so over the last week, it was very easy for me to open this view and be like, okay, let's see what albums I actually listened to the most this year.
All right. Well, I did something, I guess, a little bit similar, but maybe not quite as fancy. I just went through Apple Music on my Mac using the recently added section and scrolling back to the beginning of the year to see what albums I had added to my library. And then for the ones that I hadn't listened to in a while that I thought were contenders, but I wasn't sure, I added them to Music Box and then spent the last week re-listening to a bunch of albums to kind of fine-tune my list. I also went through my songs list a little bit too, just to see if there were any particular singles that stood out that I wanted to mention. So that's how I took care of it.
Very nice. So I guess we got to get started here. So I think last year, or was it 2 years ago, but I think I'm going to have to do it again. I'm going to have to pick an Italian album and an English album as my albums of the year.
Okay.
Because there was a specific Italian album that I really listened to a lot. Like compared to the others, it's almost like double the listening time. But I also know that for our audience, and because my music tastes are so diverse, I'm going to have to pick an English album as well. So I'm going to save the Italian one for later. I think I'm going to start with Asphalt Meadows by Death Cab for Cutie. I absolutely loved the return of Death Cab for Cutie with this album. We talked about it before. And what I appreciated the most, besides the fact that this is obviously the result of the lockdowns, the pandemic, and Ben Gibbard's, live from home, all those sessions that he did 2 years ago. The themes in these albums, you have songs like I Miss Strangers, right? We talked about this on Unwind before. But what I really appreciate about the album is that I've kept listening to it, right? And not every modern Death Cab for Cutie record has that staying power over the course of multiple months. And this happened with Asphalt Meadows. The title track I really, really like. Pepper, really fun
No,
and
I
sort
love
of
that
pop
song. Yeah.
song. There's a bunch of tracks here that like I put on just, even when I don't want to listen to the full album, just if I want to listen to that specific song. You have, I think it's gonna be incredible to see this performed live. Foxglove through the clear cut, like this is an absolute like already like a Death Cab for Cutie classic, and I think live has a real chance to be sort of the new transatlanticism. And I'm saying this hoping that when I see Death Cab in March, they will perform this track live. And broadly speaking, I think what I liked is that you have the influence and the styles of multiple eras of Death Cab in this record. You have the Death Cab from Plants and Transatlanticism. You have the modern Death Cab, right, in songs like Pepper, for example. But you also have those sounds in songs like Wheat Like Waves, for example, that sort of harkens back to the days of the Photo album, for example, or even We Have the Facts and We're Voting Yes. That's
Mm-hmm.
like Death Cab for Cutie from 22 years ago or
Yeah,
something.
it's a long time.
So yeah, a bunch of different soundscapes, a bunch of different eras in this record. I really, really like it.
Yeah, it's a great album, and this is on my list as well. So I'm not where we have a little bit of overlap this year, not a lot, but this one we do, and so I'm not going to add a lot other than to say that I agree with you. I think this is really a classic Death Cab for Cutie album. Another one of the tracks that I like a lot is Here to Forever. That's a really
Yes.
good song as well. I've been playing this. This is an album that has been a slow burn for me. I listened to it kind of sporadically when it first came out, but as time has gone on, I've returned to it more and more often. I'm going to start with an album that wasn't the album I listened to the most in 2022, but it was close. And for context, we just got our 2022 replay lists from Apple and all the stats and everything. I listened to 42,000 minutes of music last year. And some of these albums I listened to well over 100 times. But the one that stands out for me, and really, I'm gonna call it right up front that this is my album of the year, is House by Shout Out Louds. I really love that.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that band. And this album was on repeat for so long when it came out near the beginning of the year that my 22 replay is packed with tracks from this album, just because I played them over and over and over. And it grew on me so much that I actually started revisiting some of the older Shout Out Louds catalog, right? And so even some of those older albums are in my replay this year too, because there was a period at the beginning of the year where that was pretty much the only music I was listening to. It just really grabbed me as a classic Shout Out Loud's album. And
I'm gonna give you a tip as someone, and here comes the humble brag, as someone who
has met the band
and talked to Shout Out Louds in person.
Yes, I know.
If you here's a little like this is a nice touch. If you can find it, the original Swedish version of their first record, Howl Howl Gaff Gaff. Incredible album.
Really?
The original Swedish version has different takes for sure. There's like "Wish I Was Dead," which is a song that they did for the album, as a different version in that. It's basically the version they did before the international release of the album. So if you can find that, I recommend it. But otherwise, that album in general, if you're going through the back catalog, Howl Howl Gaff Gaff is like an all-time favorite album.
Yeah,
like in general for me.
Yeah, it's a really good sign when an album like this. There are 8 tracks, and of the 8 tracks, I've got 5 of them loved in the album. So there's so many good tracks here. The album that I went back to, if anybody's curious, is Optica, because Optica is just a fantastic album as well. All right, Federico, why don't you drop another one on me?
I am going to mention. Let's see. I was really surprised by the output of the Wombats this year. So
Yeah,
the Wombats,
no kidding.
indie band from the sort of the golden era of indie rock from the UK. We're talking 2006, 2007. Now, obviously, the Wombats had a massive success with A Guide to Love, Loss and Desperation in 2007. I loved that album. I was just finishing high school and, moving to Rome. And I had so many fun memories of the Wombats, but I didn't particularly like what they did after the original record. Also because maybe that style of indie rock kind of fell out of fashion a
Yeah, it
little
kind of
bit.
did. Yeah.
I liked the album that they did in 4 years ago. Beautiful People Will Ruin Your Life in 2018. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe they're actually like coming back. But what they did this year, like, I am super impressed. So first they did an album just a few months ago called Fix Yourself, Not the World. Great album cover, by the way.
Yeah, it was good.
But I really like the album because it's like, it feels like the Wombats that I knew from high school, sort of with their Britpop and post-punk indie rock influences, but modernized for today. And so it's both a nostalgic record, but it's also like, it's not the kind of album that you listen to and like, oh yeah, I guess this kind of music I used to listen to 15 years ago. Now I no longer find it enjoyable. That's not the case with Fix Yourself, Not the World. There's so many good songs on here. I especially like If You Ever Leave, I'm Coming With You. The chorus, it's like, it hooks you immediately. People don't change, people, time does. Everything I Love Is Going to Die. Like, there's really a lot of songs that I liked on this record. And it feels like genuine Wombats, and it feels like they're having fun again. And yeah, I was very surprised. And then just a couple of weeks ago, they put out an EP, which is just as good, if not maybe in some instances even better than the album. So the EP is called Is This What It Feels Like to Feel Like This? The title track is incredible. I love the song Is This What It Feels Like to Feel Like This? The guitar riff, the guitar line is so good. But also like the other songs like Same Old Damage and Dress to Kill, like really, really good tracks. And I was reading this article about the Wombats, about like how they are selling, like they're selling out stadiums again. And like how they were able to basically grow alongside their audience, but also there's new kids discovering the Wombats today, because I kind of feels like, especially I guess it's a byproduct of the pandemic, like concerts and rock music and guitars,
Sure.
like real music, and going to a concert is fashionable again because people were craving that social aspect of enjoying music together. And so like, people are into the Wombats again, and that makes me super happy. So yeah, they're both Fix Yourself, Not the World, and Is This What It Feels Like to Feel Like This? Two of my favorite releases of the year.
Yeah, they're both very good. I considered both of them. Did you see that they just did a cover of Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush earlier this month?
I saw that.
That was kind of interesting. It was on Triple J, by the way, which is an Australian radio station. All right, I'm going to pick one that I covered last year, because last year I covered a couple of the singles from it, which is Wet Leg by Wet Leg. And this is an album where the singles dribbled out over the course of a lot of 2021, but the album didn't come out until early this year, I guess in April, in fact. And again, this is another one where it's a good sign. 6 of these 12 songs I've loved on here. There's ones like Chaise Lounge and Wet Dream, which I think I met, both of which were on my singles list last year, but also Your Mum and Too Late Now are a couple of my favorites as well. The thing about the Wet Leg is it's just got this real bouncy, funny lyrics that I enjoy listening to. They're kind of uplifting, fun, and the kind of stuff that you can that it's fun to listen to when you're like driving down the highway or something. So Wet Leg, although I listened to it a lot more at the beginning of the year because I had already been into it at the end of 2021, still one of my favorite albums of the year that I keep coming back to over and over.
I'm going to go with Unwanted by Pale Waves.
Nice.
You know me, I love the retro style and aesthetic of Pale Waves,
Yep.
sort of calling back to the days of the late 90s and early 2000s pop rock. I'm into all of that scene, all of that style, and Unwanted is more of the same from the album that we covered 2 years ago, but in a good way. It's more mature, it's more refined. On balance, I think there's more songs that I find myself just humming or singing on a regular basis than on the record that they did 2 years ago. There's so many good songs here, like Without You, Unwanted, Jealousy, like, and I can hum those songs and like just sing them, like, because I remember them even though I haven't listened to the album in like a month. But this is one of the albums that I listen to the most. I think I like it more. And I want to recommend the Antidote edition, which has this. It's called the Antidote Live Sessions,
Okay.
including these live sessions. They include acoustic versions of some songs, but also a cover of Teenage Dirtbag, which is a song from a few years ago, from 20 years ago, that, of course, Pale Waves chose to cover. So, yes, if you're into this style of retro-sounding pop rock from the early 2000s MTV, TRL era, check this out, Pale Waves, Unwanted.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. I want to mention Expert in a Dying Field by the Beths, which,
Nice.
yeah, I raised this and recommended it, oh, I don't know, a month or two ago on the show. And this is great power pop. I mean, it's just classic power pop. The Beths, it's their third album. They're from New Zealand. There are a lot of great tracks here. It really gets off to a fantastic start. The first three tracks are some of my very favorites on the album. Expert in a Dying Field is the title track, as well as Knees Deep. And if you haven't had a chance to see the Knees Deep video, I would highly recommend it because it's quite funny as well. It's got this album has a great sense of humor and attitude, and I just enjoy a little power pop once in a while, and the Beths really deliver on this one.
Being Funny in a Foreign Language by the 1975.
Ah, yes,
I
that's a good album.
love I love this album. It's I mean 1975. I don't think they need an introduction from us. What they did in this record, it's an album about love and relationships and loving yourself, loving others. It sounds like an extremely shiny album from the 80s. Production wise, it's incredible. It's this album, it's the a way that I would describe the songs in a sort of in a form of synesthesia, if you will, like when you're describing, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, when you're describing something by associating like different senses,
right.
these songs sound glossy, right?
Yeah, they
In
really
a way that
do.
like,
It's a very 1975
yeah,
album. I mean, it's kind of like the epitome of their sound, but in a good way,
yes,
right?
yes, in a great way. I'm in love with you is like has to be one of my songs of the year. I was just checking out and like I've listened to this song for I don't know, what does it say, like 50 times. Like I absolutely love the rhythm and the production and the chorus and and the hook of this song. There are some slower paced songs on here, like Oh Caroline, About You, When We Are Together, which show the more intimate side of the 1975, which is also something that I appreciate as a nice break from the rest of the very 80s style power pop that
Right.
they've done with this record. Happiness, another one that I like. Looking for Somebody to Love. I mean, there's so many good tracks on here. It's not my English speaking album of the year, but it came very close.
I'm going to recommend an EP from Kaylee Goldsworthy called You're Good. Now, you've probably not heard of Kaylee Goldsworthy, Federico, I'm guessing. And
Mm.
I probably wouldn't have either. She's an indie rock artist who the only reason I know who she is she opened for Frank Turner in one of the last shows I saw before COVID in Chicago. And she doesn't have a real deep catalog, but she put out an album earlier this year, which is also very good. But this EP that just came out fairly recently, well, I guess it's been since April, but It's got 4 songs on it: You're Good, Boomerang, Overambitious, and Keep the Light On. And the first two of those, You're Good and Boomerang, are just fantastic. This is good classic rock with a great rhythm, great guitars, and I just love Kaylee Goldsworthy's voice. I mean, these are fantastic songs, and if you've not ever listened to her music, this is a good entry point because it is only 4 songs. You know, you can get through it in 13 minutes and decide whether you want to explore some more of her catalog. But this is one of my favorites of 2022 as well.
All right, so my last English album for this episode is an album from a band that I didn't know at all, which is surprising because they are extremely my stuff. I got to know this band through this record, and now I'm in the process of going through their back catalog, which is it's always a great feeling when that happens. You know, you discover a band and you know, oh, they have more stuff for me that I didn't know. So the album is The Hum Goes On Forever, and the band is called The Wonder Years. Now, The Wonder Years, they are this punk rock, pop punk, emo, like, you know that
Oh
style.
yeah, I've listened to this album. It's a good album. Yeah.
The way that I would describe it is it's a punk rock album with several emo elements for grown-ups. And what I appreciate, in fact, about this album is how honest the band was in talking about themes that you normally don't find in this sort of scene. Usually, you know, this kind of band talks about breakups and, you know, being nostalgic about high school and college, or, you know, having fun with your friends or missing your friends. They don't talk about stuff like depression or parenthood. The core theme of this album is parenthood, right? And you know, you have songs where, for example, like Wyatt's song or Oldest Daughter, like where the band was extremely honest in talking about things like, I want to make sure that I don't raise you to be a screw up like I was, and I want to leave you with a better, safer place. Like, and this is actually in the lyrics of the song, you know. And I found that really refreshing to listen to, and the songs are beautiful. You know, obviously the melodies, I've recommended here on the show before bands like The Maine, for example, as well as Mayday Parade. Like, it's in that style, sonically speaking. But the themes that are covered in this album are much more mature than what you may have seen before. A couple of shout outs here. I really like the 2 songs I mentioned, Wyatt's song and Oldest Daughter. But I would also recommend the opening track, Doors I Painted Shut, as well as the closing song, which when you listen to, you'll see how it sort of circles back to a line in the first song of the album. The song is You're the Reason I Don't Want the World to End. I found this song through a Twitter recommendation from a friend, and I am so grateful that I did, because I don't know how, but I never really, it was the first time I saw this name, The Wonder Years. And now I'm just, I believe I have like 5 or 6 albums to go through. So yeah, I absolutely loved The Hum Goes On Forever.
All right, Federico, before you get to your Italian album, I want to mention a couple of more that are on my list. And I'm a little surprised that this one isn't on your list, which is Come On You Know by Liam Gallagher, because
I gotta listen more.
Okay, this is a fantastic album. And I kind of get that, because this is also a long album, 52 minutes. There's a lot of great tracks on here. It's dense. Everything's Electric has got to be one of my favorite Liam Gallagher songs of all time. But you know, I think a lot of people probably know that you and I are both Liam Gallagher fans. The album that also came out this year from Liam that I really like a lot is Down by the River Thames.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
That one is great.
It's a live album, and it's just incredibly well produced. Really captures the electricity of a Liam Gallagher show, or at least what I imagine it to be, because I haven't seen him live before. And I love both of these albums, so I kind of put them both on my top picks this year. And then the other album, which I know is also on your list, is Midnights by Taylor Swift. And if you look at my replay statistics for the year, I somehow have managed to already listen to this album over 100 times, and I really don't know how. I think it had something to do with the Mac OS Ventura review when I was in a fog of COVID and trying to finish it up. And I just turned on music to kind of keep me alert and just listen to it over and over and over again. But this album is just, Taylor Swift was at the top of her game. Every one of her albums over the last few years have been some of my favorites. This one's a little bit of a return to some of her pre-pandemic albums, as you and I talked about in a recent episode. And I expect to continue to listen to this one a whole lot into 2023.
Okay, so the album that I listen to the most by listening time is the second album by young Italian artist Da Sup. Used to be called, I believe, it used to be called Da Supreme. I think due to some trademark disputes with Supreme, he was forced to change his name to just Da Sup. That's THASUP. And the album is called, I can give you the Italian name. It's called Carattere Speciale. It means special character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all written with strange characters, actually, like the percent sign and the plus signs. You'll see it, and you'll get it when you see the album. The reason I'm mentioning this is because Da Sup's real name is Davide Mattei, I think. Is 20, 21, 22. He is a genius. Many in Italy are calling him like the future of Italian songwriting and pop music.
Oh wow!
When he released his first record 2 years ago, it already sounded unlike anything else in Italy. It was blending all these different genres: trap music, hip hop, rap, pop, classic like Italian songwriter, with acoustic ballads. Like it was this very unique mix and blend of different influences. Mm-hmm. And unlike anything that you see in the top charts, where you can tell, oh, this is a pop song that, was put together by a bunch of like 20 different producers using a bunch of samples, like so often you can tell nothing is real in this song. Right. It was created for TikTok and top charts and Spotify playlists. That is not true for Da Sup, in that, and especially in this record, it defies the genre categorization. It's impossible for me to say, oh, this is a trap album, or this is a rap album, or this is a pop album. It's hard to describe. It sounds insane when you first listen to it. You're like, what am I listening to? Because you can find all the different sounds combined and remixed and sliced and pasted together in a way that you may not expect. Like you can go from a track that sounds like a classic rap song to another that starts out as a ballad and then as a like a hip hop tempo, or there's a song that like uses a classic blues beat, mm-hmm. but he raps on top of it, and you're like, and then there's an orchestra that comes in, or maybe there's a cello that comes in. Like this kid is obviously as a incredibly vast music culture. He produces all of these things by himself. And I was reading a bunch of interviews and profiles about him. He is he's a very slow creator. He basically disappeared for the past 2 years. He sort of takes the Adele approach, in that they put out an album, disappears for a couple of years, and then pops up again. He's like, I have an album. Like he works by himself, secluded in his studio, and he obsesses over every single detail. Like I was reading interviews with some of the bands that have features on this album, and they were like, is a genius, and he double checks, triple checks every single little detail of every single little sound. So all I can say is, if you're Italian, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you're not, you're gonna struggle to understand what he's saying in these songs,
Right.
because he also has a very peculiar style of singing and rapping. But listen to the music, listen to the melodies, and pay attention to the sounds. It is unlike anything you've heard before, and that I can guarantee you that. So this is my Italian album of the year. I should say that, because like Silvia and I, we absolutely love this record, and because you spoiled your album of the year before, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that my other album of the year is Asphalt Meadows by Death Cab for Cutie.
All right. Well, that's a great pick.
I was waiting for this one. I'm gonna go see them live in March in Milan. I am so excited, and I'm so happy that they came back with this kind of record.
Yeah, I had forgotten that you're going to go see them. I'm really jealous. That's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Federico, let's do a lightning round just to cover maybe some of the odds and ends on our lists.
Yes.
I'm going to kick it off with my singles. I've got some other things, but my singles are kind of a who's who of artists that I love that didn't have an album this year but had some singles. The first one is Sidelines by Phoebe Bridgers. I couldn't have a best of show without Phoebe Bridgers in there somewhere. This is actually a really, really excellent, beautiful song. The next one is, if you can't get enough of Taylor Swift, you've got to go for the 10-minute long, All Too Well, Sad Girl Autumn version recorded at Long Pond Studios.
Nice.
This is 10 minutes long. It's fantastic. It's not overdone. Go listen to it. Then there's October Passed Me By Girl in Red. I think Girl in Red was on my list last year. This is a single that came out maybe a month ago. Fantastic song. And then New Gold, which is in particular New Gold featuring Tame Impala and Booty Brown. It's the Dom Dalla remix of the Gorillaz song. And that just came out, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it has got quite a groove to it. I love the song. Great beat. Check it out if you're a fan of the Gorillaz. What do you have for me on your odds and ends list, Federico?
All right. I will mention this album by this band called Cara Cara. The album is called New Preoccupations. This is an indie rock album. It was recommended by Jason Tate on Chorus FM. I didn't know this band before. This is their second album. I want to go back and listen to the first one. I need to listen to New Preoccupations more, but there's a few songs that I absolutely love. Hyacinth, Strange Interactions in the Night, and Color Glut featuring Anthony Green. You may know Anthony Green from, I want to say, Seosin and Circa Survive. I hope I didn't get that wrong. But yes, New Preoccupations by Cara Cara. Then I will mention, let's see, Vaxis 2 by Coheed and Cambria. I need to, I think I'm going to do this over the holidays. I really need to sit down and go through the comic books that Coheed and Cambria do alongside their albums, like the what's it called, the Amory Wars series, and I want to listen to Vaxis 2 more, but I listen a bunch, and there's some excellent songs on this one, like Shoulders Comatose, Liars Club. Like, I really like this one. Let's see. Then I will mention, this is fun punk rock album, Kings of the New Age, by State Champs. I have been a fan of State Champs for a while now, for a few years now. I've been listening to this album like nonstop for the past week, but it's a recent addition to my library. I would recommend, if you're checking this out, I would recommend Act Like That, featuring Mitchell Tenpenny. And let's see, I also like Sundress and Here to Stay. It's a fun punk rock, relatively easy album to listen to. Then I will say shout out to, not that they need any shout out from me, but Will of the People by Muse. The press didn't necessarily like this because they called it like a collection of all their sounds over the years. I dig it. I really liked it. Compliance, Will of the People, One Stand Down, and of course Ghosts. And I would recommend, regarding Ghosts, the version that they did with Italian artist Elisa. She's incredible. Go listen to that version of Ghosts. And finally, one last shout out. Let's see. I will pick between these two. I will pick Alpha Games by Block Party. I talked about this album a few months ago on Unwind. This is another sort of comeback album from a band that I knew and I actually saw them live 15 years ago. And they came back with an album that sounds like the Block Party I knew back then. It's super fun, super tight, very high production levels. Go listen to it, Alpha Games.
All right. I have a few more honorable mentions too. These are albums. The first two on my list are my straight up honorable mentions, which I'll explain in a moment, which are Dropout Boogie by the Black Keys. This too got a little bit of criticism for sounding a little too much Black Keys, that it was a little bit safe and samey. But you know what? The Black Keys, great straight up rock album, and Dropout Boogie is fantastic. So go listen to that one. And then Surrender by Maggie Rogers, because Maggie Rogers has a beautiful voice, and this is really her at her best. It's a really good album, especially if you want to just kind of relax and mellow out. I have a list, Federico, that I'm calling Honorable Mentions Plus. These are albums that didn't make my list because they weren't quite tight enough. They weren't really quite tight enough, but they're new bands that I think are worth checking out if you haven't heard of them before. The first one is Two Ribbons by Let's Eat Grandma. Then there's Dream Machine by Lucy Daydream, and I've recommended Lucy Daydream in the past. This is their most recent album. Then Past Life by Daywave, and I believe the guy behind Daywave is a music producer who hasn't done a lot of albums and hadn't done one in quite a while, and then came out with this really great mellow album that I've been enjoying a lot. And then You Have Got to Be Kidding Me by Fan Club Wallet. Fan Club Wallet's EP was on my list last year. This full-length album is not quite... There's probably an EP's worth of great tracks on here. It doesn't quite hold together as well or is as tight as the EP, but I like it a lot too, so that's worth checking out as well. All right, Federico, that's a lot of music. We're going to have a lot of links in the show notes.
A bunch of music.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of links in the show notes for everybody, so go check them out and enjoy what we've recommended. You can find the two of us over at macstories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram, where he's at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.